Good evening. Welcome to the January 20th Township Board Study Session. What we're going to go over tonight is the police millage. The Police Commission will have a presentation for us, and how we're going to handle this tonight is Mr. Ranka is going to come up and start it. He's going to give the presentation, and if anybody else is after you, then you just have them come on up. Eric, this will not be a question and answer night. The Police Commission has asked me, and I've honored their request for a question and answer night that they're going to have. So if there's something that that you have here tonight, we can always email Ms. Shelton. They can email Chief Brozak, but I want to respect that request, that we don't get into a debate tonight, simply because this is for informational purposes only, and it's not complete, and we'll go from there. Does that sound fair?
Will there be a public question and answer?
Yes, so.
I want to ask questions.
Oh, no,
Obviously
that's
the
fine.
board, so this is gonna be more high level. And then we have documentation that is gonna be specific for residents. And I'm gonna set up like a town hall, several, at least two, if not needing one more. But for everybody to be able to participate and ask any questions within the full deck of data. So this is, we didn't want to put everything in here. This is just high level for the board, the first study session review.
And the board always has, obviously, the right to ask questions while you're up there, however you want to do it. Eric, if you want to do it as we go, that way we won't forget it. So once you come on up, Mr. Ranka, and we will have a separate question and answer with the Township Board, correct, Margaret? And we'll handle it that way. We
Okay.
good?
Nope, sounds great.
Everybody get it? All right, thank you.
Okay, first of all, thanks for having me tonight. I view this as kind of the first stop in a long journey that we'll get through. As Margaret said, right, we've got like some high-level details here. I want to go through it in depth. I will stop me at any point in time if there's a question you have. But again, appreciate your time tonight. I know it's difficult to have study sessions outside of normal board meetings. So, but this is a pretty important topic.
I don't mean to, so can we or can we not ask questions?
You can,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the public can't ask questions.
Well, we're just going to ask the public. We'll do it all at once.
So study sessions, really, you don't have public comment during a study session. That's just the form of the meeting. So we didn't plan for that.
But I can ask questions, right?
Obviously, yes.
Certainly.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, no, Township Board can always ask the questions. We didn't want this to be a debate tonight. We didn't want it to be a question and answer form, because the Police Commission came to me and stated they would have a separate meeting for the whole public to come, and that way they could get it all in. So, once again, I respect their request, and I'll go with that, that's how they want to handle it, so.
Yeah, no, we certainly expect and want questions from the board tonight, right? I mean, this is not, hey, we've got everything, this is exactly how it has to work. This is, look, we see we've got a problem, can I scope out the problem, here's some potential solutions, and then let's figure out, what we want to do to go
All right,
forward.
thank you.
Okay, so from an agenda standpoint, really have four main topics, right? So we'll cover current status of the PD, staffing, funding, the millages. Then we'll get into the JIPD 5-year needs, what our current projections look like, so financial projections for the next 5 years, and then proposed next steps, right? And obviously, we're going to need a lot of help from the board and probably some different departments here as we go forward. So, current status, where are we at right now? We've got 23 people in the department. When Doug leaves at the end of this week, so Chief Carmack's retiring, we'll be down to 22. The PD requires 24 on staff to efficiently and safely operate in 12-hour shifts, which is how we're set up right now. The problem right now is funding projections and the uncertainty of future funding hinder our ability to hire that 23rd or 24th, which is why we want to get through this plan. We've got consistent and mandatory OT, which is causing a lot of burnout and turnover, and as our numbers go down, that's only going to get worse. To put that number into perspective a little bit, I've got this chart. So what we've got here is annual OT back to 2021. So in 21-22, we had 24 people, and we were running around $50,000 of OT, and there's a lot of reasons for OT. Once we went down to 23 people, you can see that OT number increases rapidly, and it's continuing to go up. So we'll talk through that number quite a bit because that's a big trade-off that we have, OT versus people. So other current status issues with staffing is we've got the DEA position, which we want to have staffed so we can maintain the federal forfeiture funding. And we're going to talk forfeiture and how it's been used and how we're going to use it in the future. Right now, that position's on hold because we've had so many absences over the last year with FMLA absentees. And we're going to say this a couple times because it's very critical here, and it's not necessary for this slide, but the forfeiture funds, cannot increase or enhance services on the budget. We can't, quote unquote, supplant the budget. They can be used, right? We're not just building the fund balance with them. We can use them, but we can't just say, okay, we've got a hole of X dollars. We're just going to fill that into the budget. So I just want that to be kept in mind, but we are going to factor in that they will be used. So overall,
May I add something? I'm sorry.
Yep.
I just want to add something. I know it says here it cannot be used for a funding for such and such, but also what's very serious is it's not only improper, but cities have been hit with a misdemeanor violation of certain things. So if you do certain things with this money that is supplanting or making it into the budget in certain ways, there has been cities and the individuals in charge of the fund charged criminally. So it's important.
yeah, it's very important.
I want to make that clear. It's been very, very serious in some other places, and they've lost their jobs and their freedom.
Yeah, which
Okay.
is not something anybody wants, right?
Correct.
No, it's
And that's why it's so important.
That's right. It's a fund. It's there. It can be used, but like you said, it can't. There's certain ways that it must be used. Okay, so high level, we're in a very difficult position right now with forced OT. We've had some turnover last year due to the schedule, and unfortunately, potentially we may lose more officers due to forced OT and uncompetitive pay. From a funding status, right, or sources, so there's really 4 primary sources for funding. There's little like incidentals with animal license fees and everything else, but the 4 main funding sources are the millages, right? So there's 5 millages that are voted at 6.6 mils. 3 of those are dedicated, police 1, 2, 3, and then there are 2 shared millages, the general allocated and general operating. We'll see them on another chart here going forward. The general operation and general allocation are intermingled with the Groesville Township budget, although the vast majority of them go directly to the police department. There are federal forfeiture funds, which we've talked about and we will talk about a lot. Again, they cannot be supplanted, or they can't supplant the budget. And the rules for using them change quite often. So in the past, we've been able to use them, for example, for supporting the salary for one of our officers supporting DEA. The usage of that will no longer be allowed. So they're there, they can be used, but they're very governed very tightly on how they're used. Cell tower revenue is about $20,000 per year. It's shared with the fire department, and it's largely for the maintenance and building issues within the public safety building. And then there are multiple grants that vary year over year, but we're not treating them as revenue because they're essentially, money comes in for X and it goes out for X at the same amount. So it's not really a budgetary issue. So overall, the township's been run, or the police department's been running a net zero budget with the township. So there's no carryover funds and there's no really room for a rainy day fund. So it's a net zero budget, disappears every year, and then it's always difficult to figure out where it's coming from. So here are the current millages, right? So again, there's 5 on the top to bottom. So general allocated, general operating, police 1, 2, and 3 equals 6.6. But because some of them are old and with Headley and DDA capture funds, we're really only collecting 5.73 of those mills. So it says 6.6, but we're actually not capturing all of that millage rate. We'll talk about that here fairly soon because that's going to be a very important topic with the Headley. Police number 2 is up for renewal or replacement this year in August, right? So, one of the issues we've had, and it's just the way that this has worked out over time is there's really kind of voter fatigue with the police millages, right? Because there are 3 millages, they're 2 to 5 year mills, and it seems like you're always going in for a police renewal. Okay, how do we compare police millages with local communities? So some of the local communities around us, we really have the lowest votage mills rates, right, by quite a little bit, or quite a distance. And even with our proposed additional millage, it still will be far below our local cities. So really, and that's despite the fact that we've got, you know, a lot more operational challenge than most, because we're on an island. We have 14 islands we need to serve, and we've got 2 bridges to connect us. So really, one of the things is the funding issue we have right now is not an inefficiency issue, and we'll go through the budget here in the next couple of slides, but really it's an under alignment with the cost realities of where we're at, right? It's been a net zero budget, you know, shoestring for forever, and the police and the township have done a good job with that, but now it's time to say, look, there may be some things we need to work on here.
That's the first time I've seen this slide. This is really helpful for benchmarking.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably go a little bit deeper, but there's only so much time in a day to do it, and this looks like it's a,
It says a lot,
I
though.
apologize for interrupting you.
yeah, no, it's,
Is there anything that shows what a mill's worth in each one?
good question. We can get that data. I don't
that
know what that
possible?
is. Yeah, it's a good question. Yep. This is likely an old chart. Would like to get a new one, but essentially this is the overall millages. There's a couple that are not on here. Again, I'd like to get the newest and latest, but from a timing standpoint, right, between 25 and 20, or 26 and 27, we do show a reduction in mills. So it's really an ideal time for us to look at this and make sure we get the funding long-term correct for the police department while maintaining or even lowering overall mills for the township. Obviously, that's critical. Nobody wants to pay more taxes than they need to. Okay, so that was kind of the status, right? Where we funded at, what you know, where millage rates are at. What do we need to go forward, right? So there's really 3 main needs. There's always a gazillion needs, but you know, distill this down to 3, right? We need adequate funding. So right now we're collecting 5.73 on 6.6 voted mills. This doesn't fund the GIPD for this year, and I'll show you that here in a minute, let alone for future years. We don't have market competitive compensation, which is shown in a lot of metrics, but primarily because we've had to have a lot of turnover. We've had retirements. We've had to hire people the last several years. The most recent job posting we had 1 qualified candidate for, so it's fewer and further between. So how do we want to address that? We would like to add lateral pay and look at the market competitiveness of all the positions in the police department. But lateral pay allows us to also get seasoned officers, right, which is a big help from a training standpoint and from just making the office or the department.
Can you explain what that
good.
is, please?
So lateral pay is, you know, if there's say a 10-year veteran at Trenton and he or she wants to come to Grozeal, without lateral pay, that person's going to start at the bottom of our pay scale. So they may be at the top of their pay scale in Trenton or wherever they're coming from, but without lateral pay, they start back at the very bottom, you know, of our pay scale. So that's a problem. You're not going to get anybody seasoned with that type of a pay scale. And then there's command staff has not had any raises in a number of years, despite significant increases in inflation. So what does that equal to? That's about $170,000 per year over 24 people. That's around $7,000 per position. Obviously, every position is not going to go up $7,000 per year. That's just to put it in there. So it will vary by position. But the actual cost deltas there to be market competitive will change a little bit, or may change. I think it will likely change. I know the township's got a survey out right now, or market salary study, if you will, to see where, you know, are we truly competitive or not, and if so, by how much. So once those numbers come in, then we'll be able to benchmark against, you know, all of our locals. So anecdotally, we've seen a couple where they're paying much higher than us, but we'll have the actual real data here shortly. And then, of course, the 24th position is really the third ask. In this case, it's mostly offset by OT. So on the first page, we had the chart on OT that said, hey, when we had 24 people, we're spending around $50,000 per year. As we go to 23 people, that number has gone way up, and now it's in the $150,000, $160,000 range. So the chart here on the bottom right says 23 people, which is currently in our budget. OT, we wouldn't change it. Salary wouldn't change it, so there's no total adjustments. If we go to 24, we would have a savings in OT, in this case of about $110,000, again, because we would go from the 160 range to the $50,000 range. So we get a savings in OT, which is largely offset by a salary increase. So $150,000 is not a police officer's salary, but fully fringed with uniforms and OT, medical, health, everything else. That's a pretty conservative number. So from 24 to 23 people is, $41,000 a year annual adjustment, high level.
Wait.
Go ahead.
Just so I can understand what you're saying. From 24 to 21 is 41,000 each.
No, so if, for 23 people, that's where our budget's at right now. So if we keep 23 people, our budget's neutral. If we go to 24 from our 23-person budget, it's a delta of $41,500 for the budget annual. Because, you know, we add that 24th person at $150,000, but that will save, you know, roughly $110,000 worth of overtime because we're running such a high overtime deficit right now. So if I go back up to this page here, right? So there's OT by calendar year. So the furthest I have is back to 21-22. It's around $55,000. That's when we were fully staffed, 24 people. Every year you can see it's gone up, and now, you know, right now we're saying it's gonna be 163,706 in OT at 23 people. So when you add that salary, right, you offset a lot of the OT. You don't go to zero OT, you never go to zero OT, but you offset a significant portion of that OT.
Got it. All right, thank you for explaining that.
So that number will be important here on the next chart as we go through the real details. So the question is going to be asked, right, okay, well, what happens at 22 people? Well, 22 people is not sustainable for a number of reasons, which we'll talk about. But the OT then would jump up another roughly $120,000. These are all estimates, right? Because now you've got extra turnover, you've got a lot more OT, and you've got a lot more training, right? So you've got training. As you lose people, you've got to train them. You need more OT for the FTOs and everything else to bring that back in. Of course, that would have a salary offset negative, right? So really, you're saying that the delta to the budget would be around $30,000 if you went down to 22 people.
Can I ask a quick question on that topic?
Sure.
Was there a comparison done between 12-hour and 8-hour shifts as far as overtime?
Did not do that.
Okay.
Did not do that.
Okay.
We could go back, probably would require some more archive, if you will, that maybe the finance director could help us with, because we can look at the actual OT as far back as we can. I just pulled these from the last several budgets.
Nope, understood. Thank you.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Yep. Okay, so that's the three really needs, right? So we're underfunded right now, so 5.73, you'll see in the next chart that we're actually gonna need like 6.11 this year. Market competitive compensation, this number will change a little bit as we get, you know, the survey results from the township, and then the 24th position. Okay, there's a lot of data here. I'll go slow and just kind of walk with me for a minute. So the main chart in the center, right? So top to bottom are years. So all the way on the left, you've got the 25 to 26 baseline. As you go top to bottom, then you go just year over year. We go left to right on that one. The first one's wages. So this is just the actual wages from the budget. Now, same thing with insurance. Then we've got MERS, fire transfer. So what this is it's a shared dispatch between the fire rescue and the police. So the fire department partially offsets the dispatching budget with this transfer in for to support dispatcher. Operating is the next one over. This is really everything that's not on here. So it's all of your equipment purchases, vehicle purchases, fuel, maintenance, IT, legal fees, uniforms, reserve supplies, radio systems, everything else that's not covered in basically these things. Continuing to the right, we've got average forfeiture usage. So going through the forfeiture, again, it's very detailed on what you can and cannot do with the forfeiture. But historically, the department has used an average of $280,000 a year of forfeiture funds. The reason this is at 130 is because part of that average $280,000 was paying for a salary of the person who's in DEA. That's no longer allowed. So even though we spent average of $280,000 in the last several years, some higher, some lower, but that's the average, we can't necessarily spend that in the future. So it's safe to assume we're going to spend, you know, about $130,000 in forfeiture, just looking at historically how it's been spent. And I think it would be, you know, it's there. It can be used. It just has a lot of rules. So I think it's very important that everyone recognize that it's there, and we are recognizing that it is, you know, it is a fund. So that's negative because it's coming off. Market adjustments is the next one over. This is the salaries that we talked about on the first page. It's $170,000 per year. So if you're just going left to right, you add wages, insurance, MERS, fire transfer, operating, forfeiture, usage, a negative, market adjustments, and you get that total. So, for example, this says we, are gonna spend roughly $4.8 million this year based on this budget. A mill should yield $794,000. So just take the math, we're gonna spend 4.8 million, a mill yields a little less than 800,000, that says that we need 6.11 mills this year. The delta to the mill, the blue column on the right, just put a pin in that one for a second, we'll come back to it. So that's left to right, how we build up the budget. As we go top to bottom, we go, annual increases. These annual increases came from the finance director. So wages, she's saying 5%, insurance 8, insurance 5, MERS 8, fire transfer 5%, operating 5%. Actually, she had suggested 10% for the operating increase. We backed it back down to 5, thinking that was a bit much. And then the mill yield, she said that we should expect that we get a 3% mill increase year over year. So as you go then top to bottom, it says essentially, we need 6.11 mills this year, and by 2031, we'll need 7.09. Doing some math and saying, okay, if we put a 24th person on staff, so the upper right-hand corner, that's adding 41,500 to the wages, that's where this math comes from. So going through, the magic number based on this math is 6.68 mils. So we should need 6.68 mils for the next 6 years to effectively operate the department. Essentially, the first 3 years, we would have a budget surplus, and then we go negative the last 3 years. So you've got to add all 6 years total, so positive, 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 negative, 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 and then that's how we've been balancing out what the mill rate should be. In this case, it says that the average or the surplus, 6-year surplus or safety net would be $268,000. If you divide that by 6, it's $45,000 per year. If you look at the operating budget of $566,000 and there's a potential yearly surplus of $44,000, that's like 8% of the operating budget. So it's a pretty small safety factor for looking this far out into the future. Could you cut that a little bit closer and make it 6.67? Maybe. Would you fall short and maybe you needed 6.689? I think those are the questions we need to talk through with the finance department. So this is really just a high-level budget of here's what's in the budget now, here's what we spent. It boxes to how we've been operating the department, and then with these needs and considering that we will be using some forfeiture, this says we would need 6.68 mils versus 6.60, which is on the books today, but 5.73, which is collected. So because of Headley, we say we're 6.6, we're only collecting 5.73, and that's why I say, really we're in having an issue because we need 6.11 mils this year, and we're only collecting 5.73.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
I'm sorry, but with other numbers, so right now you're getting part from general revenue and part from the millages, right?
Yep.
So how does this break out when you're showing us the numbers? Are you showing us only the increase in the millages to pick up that additional person, or?
Yeah, so we'll get there in a second. We're just look right now, we're just looking at the total mills required, and then we can figure out whether we do a consolidated millage or just increase one of the mills, or we say, hey, we're going to do something completely different.
But is it making the assumption that the general revenue, the portion from that, stays the same?
Right now, that's our proposal.
Okay.
That's our proposal.
Okay.
Yep. So this is 6.68 at 24 people. At 23 people, the number, I ran the numbers just to show the delta. So up in the upper left-hand corner where it says delta to 23, that's where that goes to 0, current budget. And this says we need 6.62 mils. So 6.2 versus 6.8 is a very minor delta between having a fully staffed department and having continue on with a lot of OT and burnout. Questions so far? Okay, so Mickey, this is the question you really had then. So what's our request right now? Based on this math, and until we get the actual Headley reductions and DDA capture from the finance department, and then the wage compensation study from the township, it would say we need 6.68 mils to go forward. That puts 24 people in the department and minimizes OT. Currently, we've got 5.73, again, versus a 6.6, which is voted. So right now, this is unsustainable. So we will have 22 people in the department now that, that Chief Carmack is retiring here at the end of the week, which will increase substantially our OT. From our standpoint, it's unsustainable from a safety and burnout standpoint. And there'll be under other unpredictable increases in costs as we have to, you know, when you turn people over, you've got to retrain, and there's a whole bunch of other costs associated with that. And then just to look at the budget overall is really this pie chart. So the operations, again, the fuel, the bill, like the maintenance, the tasers, the ammunition, the uniforms, ACO, all of the day-to-day operations is 12% of the overall budget, right? So the vast majority of this is people. And at the end of the day, it's 0.06 mils that separates the difference between 23 and 24. So the proposal, right, and this is where we wanted to collaborate with the township board and figure out if this is the right proposal, or maybe there's other ones, because obviously you're worried about the total mill rate for the entire township. But right now, what we think is the easiest lift, rather than going to a consolidated, is to take the police number 2. It's expiring this August. It would be a 0.75 mil renewal, and that instead of using police 2 as just a renewal of 0.75, which would actually collect much less because of Headley, we would suggest that become a new 1.7 mil. And the math there is the 6.68, which we've shown on the charts with 24 people, minus the current collected rate at 5.73, says that we've got, you know, 0.95 delta just in collected versus voted. And then we would have to add that to the 0.75, which we need to replace, which is where the math for 1.7 mils comes from. So, go ahead.
Just so I understand, is the 1.7 the final result, and that's minus already what it will be collected? Or do you minus from 1.7 the final result, which comes down even lower in the collection stage?
It will come down lower in the collection, which is partially offset though, because the mills, the dollar yield per mill goes up. And that's where I want to sit down with the finance director and make sure that the nitty gritties are
Each mill is going to
totally
be worth more,
That's right.
so the dollars collected will be more, but you still have a Headley rollback a little bit
That's right.
smaller.
That's right. And even with this one, right, so there's 5 mills. So if we go back up here, so the Headley rollback will still affect everything except for police 2. So in this chart, police 1, for example, you know, it's a 1 mil voted, but because of Headley, it's now collecting 0.96.
Right.
Right. Police
Right.
2 is similar age, so 0.75 is voted, it's collecting 0.72.
Right.
So those, police 1 and 3 in general allocated and general operating would not change in this proposal, so they would continue to roll down from a Headley.
Would the verbiage on the voting ballot be 1.7, you're asking, or 1.75, and the 7 was because of the rollback?
Right now, it would be 1.7.
Would be one.
Because, and this is where, again, where I want to sit down with the finance department
Okay.
and confirm this, but with the math that we've done, we said we need 6.68, assuming it's 100% collected 6.68. We already have some Headley rollback on GA, GO, police 1 and police 3. So that's where this math comes to. This says, okay, we need 6.68 full all in. We're only getting 5.73 across all of those today. So there's your Headley. So we're missing 0.95. So let's add the 0.95 to the 0.75 that's there. And then police 2 would reset at the top of Headley, and everything else would roll down.
Okay.
And this should capture that, but again, that's where I want to go through, you know,
What, Teresa?
yep,
All right.
that's right. Are the numbers going to change much? Maybe a little bit. I don't see them changing drastically, but it's possible.
Okay, understood, thank you.
Okay, so next step. So again, this was really the first step of the journey on, you know, making sure we're aligned on what the issues are, what the potential solutions are, and how we move forward. So that's today is a study session. We really want to review the budget and the projections with the Township Finance Director to finalize a request, and there's really 2 points there. So one is to confirm that we've got actual Headley and DDA capture proper. You know, we're counting the correct amount of that for the next couple of years. And then the second one is to align with the pending compensation study for the area, right? So what are other, you know, police chiefs and police officers and detectives and everything else making? And that will be part of this as well. Then I would propose, or we would propose, sorry, that we'd have a study session number 2 with the Township Board. So we'll, you know, revise the numbers, firm them up. We'll give you guys some time to think about, okay, you know, do we really want a mill 2? Do we want a consolidated? Do we want something completely different, right? So the idea now is we've got some time, which is why we're coming to you right now to mull over this, think through it, and strategize on how we want to move forward. Obviously, then we review with the Township Attorney, and then the idea would be to get it on the ballot for the August primary. And for that to happen, the Township has to have ballot language approved by May 12th, 2026. So that's really kind of the end goal. And then, of course, you know, this is a big deal because you're talking taxes, even though it's a, you know, 0.06 mil increase, technically voted 6.60 to 6.68, it's actually 0.08. It's very insignificant, but anything is a big deal for people. So we want to make sure that we get the right level of communication out there. So from our standpoint, you know, GIPD it's an integral to the way of life, right? I mean, you saw today there was a dog or yesterday, right? The dog got trapped on the ice, and it wasn't just the police, but all the first responders on GI, right? That doesn't happen in a lot of places. And then 2 is doing nothing's not an option, right? We've got a funding issue. We've got to make some changes.
Okay.
So I did a lot of talking. There's a lot of numbers. I'm happy to answer questions now or in the future, right? As some of this stuff is going to sink in.
Is there any questions from the board at this time, either side?
I have some.
Mickey?
Yeah.
Oh, Mickey, yeah. Oh,
You
go
want
ahead.
to
Yeah,
start?
can you start?
Yeah. Will you show me that slide again that shows the millages, the different millages?
This one? Or this one?
I think it just had the PD on there. Yeah. Okay.
So general allocated, general operating, and then police 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. First of all, from what I understand is when we did that survey of what people want in Groseal, public safety was right at the top. So I'm glad you're doing this, because we are addressing what they are asking for, right? Continued safety. One of the things I wanted to ask is, so you're putting it on the August referendum, right, for the vote? But I heard that the votes usually go better later in the year when people aren't on vacation. I don't know if that's
Something we're going to have to rely on kind of the whole team to figure
There's
out
been a
when
reason
it goes, right?
because of
Yeah.
that why you would put it in August.
okay.
I don't want to
Okay.
overspeak or misspeak, but sometimes if August doesn't go, now if you see this, Mickey, you'll see that there is a 0.75 renewal. If, let's just say that this doesn't go, they still need that renewal, which can be done in the next session. So there's a reason why they put it in August for the combined millages, if you will.
That's right.
Okay, so,
right.
but we can talk about that.
And again, I mean, the board, you guys may say, look, that's a terrible idea. We want it here for whatever the reason. Let's have those discussions.
And Eric, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, that might not be what the group's answer would be. That's what the township's answer was. That's all I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yep.
I'm not trying to speak for the group here.
Yeah, I mean, we're a recommending body. This is what we're recommending, but
Yeah.
obviously, you know, you guys are the decision makers.
Okay.
I just want to comment, I also think as our population ages, and I'm one of them aging, right, that you rely
You're not
on
the only one.
police department, yeah. But you rely on the police department more, so are you tracking your calls? Are you seeing, you know, a trend going up and?
We do track the calls. We don't track them PD versus fire versus rescue, but, you know, if you look on average, it's about 1,000 calls a month. This time of year, it usually goes down a little bit, and then, you know, it's a little bit more in the summer, but that's been relatively consistent.
Well, because fire's going up quite a bit, and you're usually, first responders, and so generally, if theirs are going up, PDs are going up as well.
For sure.
And you gotta have your staff. My last question is, so out of all the millages, you were showing the different line items. So is this one that would be a renewal if it wasn't for an increase? It's just that 1 year then?
So if we did that, if we just said, look, let's just let it ride, let's let it renew, it would renew at something less than 0.72.
Okay,
And then we would, we'd still be underfunded.
okay, so I got you. All right, that's helpful. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, Mickey. I had some on the left, I'm sorry, somebody over here. Was it Mark or Kevin?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if this slide production's available to us to go over, or so I don't have to sit to go back and forth on the video.
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to compare with my notes I'm taking right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is just data for you guys to digest and question
you.
and, yeah.
That's all I had right
All
now,
right.
thanks.
Kevin, did you have, you had something?
I will just say thank you very much. I appreciate the presentation.
Yep, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we see there's an issue, we need
Yeah,
to,
I'm coming back.
let's air it out and figure out how to fix it.
Jameson had something. Eric?
Okay. These aren't in any particular order. I've just been writing them down as you've been talking. So
Sure.
if it seems like it's back and forth, I apologize.
It's fine.
So can you look at the staffing slide again? So, yep, that one there. It had the
The O-
overtime.
the
Yeah,
OT.
this one
Yeah.
here. So it looks like overtime went up in 2023, which is when we went down to 23 officers. But is that also not when we went to 12-hour shifts?
So the question, I think, actually was before the 12-hour shifts, but we can add that in here exactly when that was.
Okay, I think an analysis of the 12-hour shift, especially because we're heading into contract negotiations, is important. Because realistically, the chief of police needs to be able to make decisions about who works at what time and for how long. And I don't know where they're at with what the union thinks of all that, but it would be nice to be able to have that sort of command authority, especially if it's causing more overtime. And then your comparison slide regarding millages with other communities. Yep. So what is the department strength of these other communities? So as an example, like Flat Rock has a population of 10,000, 7.8 mills. Do we know the number of officers working for them?
I mean, we could cut this deck a million ways. We just looked at it and said, okay, comparatively, assuming you're getting similar service, right? Where's everybody paying?
Yeah, I'm not trying to poke holes.
No,
in
it's
anything
that's
here.
that's the idea here.
So I guess what I'm thinking of, I'm very much a data-driven decision maker. So if it seems like I'm asking gotcha questions, I'm not trying to ask.
Yeah, no,
gotcha
that's
questions.
fine. I mean, like I said, this is the first stop on the bus route, right?
Okay.
We've got a few more to make here before this is all said and done.
Let's see. So in the end, it looks like you're asking for 6.8 mils total, right? I mean, not asking for, but with all the increases, I shouldn't say all the increases, with the one renewal and the increased mill, the fourth mill, or which would replace police millage 2, that gets you to 6.8 mils, correct?
6.68.
Okay, but what you're really saying is you need 7.1 realistically by 2030.
Yes, but if you're not going to go every year and say, okay, I need an increase of a percent, whatever it is, we said, look, let's look at 6 year. I mean, millage are not yearly anyway, right? There's 5, 6, 10 years, whatever we decide on. So we said, let's look at this over a 6-year time period. Yes, we will be under collecting back then. We'll be over collecting now. So it's required that the department then basically keeps the proceeds from the preceding year so they can offset the budget in the next year or two.
Okay.
So yeah,
And then-
so there will be a surplus in this instance, right? The first 3 years will have a surplus, and then there'll be a deficit the last 3 years.
Okay.
And the idea is to net them all out.
Makes sense.
Yep.
So, obviously, there's two sides to this funding equation, right? And this is, I don't mean to sound thorny or anything. Obviously, there's cost and then there's, revenue. So is there any discussion of how to handle this on the cost side? Have you guys talked about like structure, hours, manpower, overtime policy? Like I feel like there needs to be probably a two-pronged approach to this because ultimately you're going to overrun this budget eventually anyway.
I mean, we can go historically how the police departments, worked on the budget, and they've done a pretty good job of meeting the budget. So the cost overruns on this case are large and not overruns. The large portion of the costs are largely human driven, right? So the operating budget, the 566,000 it's 12%, right? So even if you say, let's save 10% of that and be heroes, it's $50,000. It doesn't go a long way into offsetting,
No, I guess what I'm saying is, let me take a different approach. Let's say this isn't approved, and the taxpayer's like, no more taxes, right? You guys are stuck with what you have right now. You would have to either look at, I don't know, restructuring, natural attrition. Like there are additional steps the police commission would need to take to work within your current budget.
It would be more than that, right? It would be the police commission, it would be the union, right, and likely the township as well.
Sure,
right? And
I guess
what's
that
the
makes
minimum
sense.
level of even if you got rid of the 12 ships and went to 3/8, you still have to have X number of people 24 hours a day,
Right.
and that's the reality, right?
So the mission statement of 24 personnel, right, is a requirement based on the idea that there's 3 on the road all the time, but some guy's always sick and another dude's on vacation, and you're still going to be able to get to this
That's right.
targeted 3-minute response time, right?
That's right.
Okay. So the only other thing I had was I would like to see calls. I'm surprised that the fire department, police department doesn't separate calls, and I'm surprised they don't even keep track of what type of calls.
Well, they're segmented out. There's I don't know 30 different types, right? There's 911 calls, or general assist calls. There's so it is broken out.
There's some
Okay.
And it's
different
actually it's in our
concerns, too,
police
for
packets
privacy.
once a
Well, I
month.
mean, you just don't publish people's names and addresses, right? But stating
No,
that
but
there
the,
was
the number of the number of calls are in there, and they are broken out by type of call. So
Okay.
it is in there. The data is available.
okay. Well, I would like to see that at some point, I guess, if somebody could get that to me. But I mean, just as an example, right? Let's say there is 1,000 calls in January, and 900 of them are fire calls. Well, that means we need a much bigger fire department and probably not as big of a police department, right? And I'm not saying it's like that.
Sure.
I'm just saying that's
Yeah,
an
yeah.
example of why data is
Yeah,
valuable
yeah,
in
yeah.
this case. So,
So every call is broken down, but every call that is taken, the police go to.
Yeah.
Right? So
Right.
that's every call. So
They've pulled hose too before on fires and different things.
Right,
They
so-
jump right in.
if there's a call for service, we can pull the blotter data, but in fact, that's been posted monthly since and I'm not making out like I'm special, but I asked that this was put on the website, on the township website under the police, that their blotter information is always there. It's something that we talk about at every commission meeting, but every call for service, and perhaps, I can't think of one that we've not gone on. One of you can correct me, but every call for service we typically go to, as far as I'm aware.
I guess to my point is this is a multi-million-dollar enterprise, right? And you're not going to run a multi-million-dollar enterprise without knowing what's happening in that enterprise. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I would want I want to know, did the police run on a fire call as an assistant, right? Like, yep, we showed up at a heart attack or a
That's every call.
trauma or whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And then, or was it a domestic violence? Was it a shooting? Was it an assist to the public, right? I mean, there's no reason we shouldn't be able to have that data on a monthly basis to help us with this kind of decision.
We do have
We
it,
do.
but for
That's what
example,
I'm
my
saying.
neighbor had the fire department show up on a certain date, and if that gets out there, then you say, okay, they were at my neighbor's house on this date, and it says heart attack, or whatever it says, so you would be able to trace it
I don't
back.
think HIPAA stretches that far. It's not.
We've got the call log. We can get it to you. It's in the monthly police packet, right? There's a big chart that says there's 900 calls this month, and it's broken out by what they are for.
And that's probably the high level overview.
Yeah.
If you want serious detail, it depends on how granular you want to get, but what I'm saying to you is that every call for service, the PD goes on.
Yeah, I'm tracking But, and we're getting further and further away from the discussion about this police millage, right? But maybe PD doesn't need to go on every single call, right? So to say that PD is running 1,000 calls because the fire department's running 1,000 calls is a kind of a straw man.
It's not, because it's a volunteer fire department. So every call that comes in, if it's a medical call, for instance, if somebody's having a heart attack, 9.9 times out of 10, it's the police department who is applying the Lucas. And it's the police department who's getting there ahead of, not because fire doesn't want to, but they are by definition volunteer, so they don't get there as fast as us because we're already on the road. So
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I would like some data. I think that would help with this kind of decision making, and it would help with decision making about the entire public safety apparatus. So.
right, I don't want there to be any confusion, because I've said this several times before on the board. I did not realize this until I got on the board and until I was on the police commission as the liaison. Every single call is attended by the police department, medical or otherwise. And I mean, we just had as an example, we just had a life-saving award given out to one of our officers, one of our dispatchers, and then we had an accommodation given to one of the other officers who literally brought somebody back to life from an overdose. That was the police officers that did that. So that's just one of the examples. All I'm trying to get at is I don't want anybody to be confused in the public. Every single call for service, and again, any one of these gentlemen right here can correct me if I'm incorrect, police attend.
And HIPAA does apply to the fire department. They're running EMS calls, and so I've asked the fire commission to not release that information to anyone. We don't need to see that to make decisions on this.
I completely disagree with you. The idea that you're going to hide the call volume and type of the fire
Not
department.
the call volume. You know what? I'm an ERISA attorney. I do employee benefits for a living. HIPAA applies. The answer is no.
I've worked
And
in
also,
emergency services for 23 years. We
know what?
release data.
If you're an
Like,
attorney, raise your hand.
Okay.
And also,
Yeah, hold on.
You're
public
blocked.
safety,
Wait.
they're a team. Let's
Hold
not
on.
mess up
Let's-
that team environment.
Let me speak, please. Let me speak. This is what we're going to do. Todd, do me a favor. Go back. I've been to numerous, how about this? I've been to a few commission meetings, but I do watch you. So how about this? I've watched you guys numerous times. I like watching it from my home. Okay, sorry. Could you please, when you go back this week, Todd, could you go back to your report and get each month's report for Jameson, and email him the monthly report that shows the statistics and the numbers that you give out each month? Can you do that for him? And that way, Jameson, you'll get at least the
Yeah,
starting
that's fine.
packet, and you'll have questions maybe.
I mean, maybe it might answer all my questions.
Well,
I don't know.
it may not, but Todd, how about that? Can you do that for him? And just email it to Jameson,
Thanks, Chief.
and you know what?
I just sent it to the whole board.
I was just gonna say that. You know what? It makes it easier. Do you have a group email yet? You're gonna have to make one anyway, so.
I'll send it to you, and I'll send it to the entire board.
Yeah, no, just send it to the whole board. Get a group email going, because I'm sure we're gonna have you send us a lot of stuff the next.
Clarification, I know, hopefully that everybody can hear me. A call for service is a call for service. We don't look at it as fire. Fire department's rolling, police department's automatically going. It's still a call for service. We're required, I shouldn't say we're required, that's what we do here. We're the first on scene. We're the marker for the fire department. We're the first ones there assessing, AED, gathering information for the fire department before they pull up. I mean, it's very important. So to say that we're very integral in that whole, it's a one unit. That's how we look at it. And it's a call for service.
Okay.
I would never want to change that. And I don't think that's what you're suggesting. You just want to see how many calls that we're responding to that are fire.
Well, I think
Right.
what I see during your meeting is that, what do you call it, monthly report? And I think you're the one that gives it, aren't you? And if you could just make a copy of those 12 months, only in the year 25, can you do that? And then just send it to us, that could be helpful. And that would answer some questions maybe that others have. All right?
Can I ask this
So
real
if I'm
quick?
overly passionate, it's because we have suicides and everything, and we just want to respect people's privacy, right? I mean, you have mental health issues, they
No,
come in
this
all kinds of
doesn't,
calls.
this doesn't give name, no.
Yeah,
Right.
this is just number of calls per day.
This is
I'm
like,
just saying why I was so passionate about it, because I do believe that we want to be
Oh,
careful.
yeah,
Just give
yeah,
us
no.
what we need and not
Todd's
anybody's
report doesn't
personal.
have names, addresses, he has
Okay.
numbers.
Right.
All he has is numbers in a checkbox of the type, amount, and when.
Yeah,
And
that'll
that's what we're
satisfy
looking
what we
at.
need. That'll satisfy what we
That's
need.
what-
We don't
yeah.
need
Yeah, I mean,
addresses, we don't need
that's all,
names.
that makes perfect sense,
Yeah, that's
right?
not it. Okay.
Okay. Other
Any other
questions?
question? Oh, I'm sorry, Kevin, you had something.
No, do you have questions?
No, I'm done. I'm done.
Couple questions on, so the total mills that we collected for this year, Derek, is how much?
14.44.
And, okay, thank you, I see that.
Yeah, on the bottom there. Let's see.
I don't believe the chart that he has there is accurate. You know, for example, the litigation judgment is no longer on there.
I was gonna say, that did leave.
14.44 as of December 25 is what I have.
And then, so you're saying that we would, you need 6.62 to do what you would like to do?
think it's
Yeah, but of that
6.68.
6.6 are already on here.
All right, so,
So police operating, 1, 2, 3, general allocated and general operating are already on here of 6.6. So we're saying go from 6.6 to 6.68.
so on the 14.44, we would just add 6.68, Derek?
.08, just .08. Yeah.
Well, depends upon whether there's other things that are coming on or going off, which I don't think that there are. I'd have to do some quick math for you real quick if you want to give me a quick second.
Well, just.
Well, for the
close
next one,
these-
if we can just get this updated millage chart, because this is from budget year 23, 24, so this
I think it's
is,
right around like 15.1. something
Okay.
like that.
The other question I had is, when you talk about we're the lowest millage, is that what you said?
right.
Can we, as you tweak this, could we find out what the actual cost per community is for the police, or what their millage rate is, so that we can compare, because our millages are higher more valuable because
You mean what each mill brings in, you're asking, correct?
in each community, right?
Yeah, or maybe even.
Yeah,
it
that's what
isn't.
Joe already asked
Well,
that.
yes.
Yeah, can we do,
Yes,
yeah.
yes and no, because keep in mind, some of these also have industrial bases that we don't have.
Right.
I can't answer that question. I don't know if the industrial bases are taxed at the same mill or not, so, but it's a good point, but just we need to look at both of those, right? Like, you
Well,
know,
I think what he's asking, what I asked is, if Groseal brings in 6.6, it's like $800,000 per mill.
Correct.
Now, I have no idea what Flat Rock is per mill.
Like
It could
$2
be-
million a
It
mill,
could be
you
$1
know.
million, it could be 500. I think that's what Kevin's
Sure. Yeah,
asking.
yeah.
Yes.
It's fair question,
Is that-
yeah.
am
That's
I-
correct, yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
I didn't mean to
That's perfect,
interrupt. I'm just saying, I
Thank
want to
you.
make sure we got this square.
thank you.
Yep.
Okay. And that would be helpful just to look at, that's all.
And compare the total,
Total dollars, yeah.
yes, please.
Okay. You good? Derek, did you have a couple questions?
Not at this point in time. I've got some feedback that I'll provide afterwards, but no questions at this point.
Okay. Does anybody else have any question? Margaret, I know you put this plan together with them. Is there anything you'd like to say, though, before we end?
So I want to comment on the 12-hour shifts. We can go through, there's data that we can provide on that overtime, specifically 8 versus 12. But I think in many cases, we need to start keeping in mind that the communities surrounding us and pretty much beyond us are primarily on 12-hour shifts. That seems to be a current norm for many departments, which means that is something that entices people to a department. So that's something to keep in mind. That is the reason that I believe in the last contract, this department, I think they gave COLA up, if I recall, for the 12-hour shifts, which is significant. So there are certain things, there are nuances that, you know, and I've said this before, it takes a lot to understand these budgets. It's not as straightforward as some people might want to believe or, you know, comment upon. But that is something that, you know, is pretty significant. So I think if we want to focus on, you know, that particular concern, we can provide that data. I think the other thing that we really need to consider, at least if you're listening to what Eric is saying and the commission is trying to express, is that 3 officers per shift is not an excess. It's about coverage and not call volume. And I know we like to look at data, and I do too. I'm very data driven, but safety is not measured in only by how many calls occur. It's whether or not you have somebody that's always available to respond. It's how quickly can backup arrive. I have an officer that had to commit somebody, and I have another officer who got injured in the process. That's 2 down. Do I have one more? If I don't, what am I doing next? A call can leave the township uncovered, literally. That's an example I just provided. When officers are forced to work alone, all you have to do, and again, I can pull this data, it actually is data driven. I see it daily, weekly, monthly. There are so many communities that just the DV calls alone, the domestic violence calls, those are so insanely concerning because you never know what's going to happen. Many of them result in injuries, some result in deaths. We've had quite a few going on in the communities surrounding us. I think there are things that we don't realize. We all want to pretend that Groseal is Fantasy Island, and I would love it to be. But we need to make sure that we are deciding for ourselves. I'm not telling anybody what to do. I didn't with the bridge, and I won't with this. But you have to be very clear and decide for yourself, what kind of police department do you want to have? What kind of community do you want to maintain? And what are the needs of Groseal, the primary needs of Groseal? And I don't think it's about call volume. It's about coverage. It's about what's important to officer safety and community safety. So that's all I'm going to say right now. We will have a lot of data to provide for residents. I do want to make sure that we have Q&As for people that want to really understand and learn, what they're going to be voting on. So thank you.
Thank you. Sure. Go.
With the 12-hour shifts, could we see, my understanding is when we went to 12-hour shifts, yes, the union gave up, patrol officers union gave up some things, but the 12-hour shifts actually cost more annually. Mm-hmm. So could we look at what the cost of 8-hour shifts are versus what the cost for 12-hour shifts would be? And so it is more expensive to have because there is overtime with 12-hour shifts, I understand. And
I think it's more, there's more scheduled hours.
Yeah, there's 4 extra scheduled hours every 2 weeks for each individual.
So, but you're paying, it's not necessarily overtime, it's paying for hours worked. Because there's more hours actually, but that also translates to patrol hours, right? That's more, they're working those additional hours, they're on the road more than what they would be within the community versus an 8. So
is my question correct then, saying that it did cost more for the whole year when we went to 12-hour shifts?
the overall cost for personnel, yes, went
Okay.
up, but also you got more patrol hours out of that as well. So if you're looking simply at the cost, your answer is yes, there is more cost with a 12-hour shift because there's more hours worked. But it doesn't increase, it's not an increase in wages, it's just an increase in actual hours on the road. So you get actually more patrol. In essence, it's almost like adding 3/4 of a body because you get that many more patrol hours out of a 12-hour shift.
So, thank you for explaining that. Back to the question though, can we look at what it costs for 8-hour shifts versus 12-hour shifts? And how that works out?
But I think, wasn't it on that one slide where you were talking about the cost and what you would need if you switched? Because it was saying there'd be some savings because you wouldn't be doing the 12 hours, but there'd be a cost of adding a head?
No, that's just straight up OT to OT. So I didn't, this particular presentation doesn't study 12 versus 8-hour shifts.
It just looked at the overtime.
Just looks at overall overtime, right?
Okay, because that,
And you still have overtime with 8-hour shifts as well for a lot of reasons.
okay.
So.
But yeah, we can, I think it's just,
It's a simple formula, it's only
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
4 hours times each patrol officer times the 365 days or how many
yeah,
you do, and it's not that difficult to
yeah,
get that.
we should be able to get that
Thank you.
pretty easily.
So is it safe to say that the biggest priority or most important priority for patrol is to have 3 officers on the street 24/7?
I'll let,
I mean, is that that's the objective, right? Or that's the main objective or main goal? Okay. Okay. That's all I have for right now, just the rest of the information, and I'll look it all later. Thank you.
Thank you all. Eric, thank you for the presentation. And I know you'll get hold of us on the next step. As Margaret stated, there will be a more of a Q&A to get the community involved before the vote, correct? And that's what the commission and you are planning, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
That's right.
Okay. So thank you very much tonight. I think everybody got their questions out, got them answered, and a couple tasks for homework to send us would be very helpful. Todd and Eric, if we can get those 12, the 8, the exact amounts, I think that's about it, so.
Okay. Yeah,
All
no,
right,
thanks
thank you
for
very much,
thanks to
everybody,
the
for
police
coming.
commission as well. Yep.
Thank you for the work, commission. We have police commissioners here. And Margaret, thank you very much for the work you've done on this. And once again, Eric, really thank you. That was a nice presentation and clear.
Yep. No, I mean, it's the whole commission and a lot of the force. But
Yeah.
I just am the guy that gets to stand up here and do
No, I
it.
understand.
But thanks for the time.
All right. Study session is over at 8:02. Do we need a vote on a study session? Okay, then it is over. Then it's over, 8:02.